Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Eating at a Meeting. I am your host, Tracy Stuckrath, and I'm excited to be back in my home office, chatting with you and chatting with this gentleman over here, Mark Cooper. Where's my finger? Over across the pond in the UK. Mark is the CEO of IACC, and they just put out their new meeting room of the future report. And there's lots of great data. I got to read it beforehand before they gave it out to the world. Lots of great insight there, Mark. So, hi.
Good morning. It's great to join everybody. Thank you.
Well, it's evening there. What are you saying? Good morning. It's afternoon now in here. It's 12
There
o'clock.
We go. There we go. Nearly cocktail hour for everybody.
Exactly. Okay, so we already have a comment here, Mark. Sarah Matheson says hi from Hungry Harry's.
Hi, Sarah.
Thanks for joining us already and from the beginning. And so, Mark, first, actually tell everybody what IACC is and why do you do this Meeting Room of the Future report?
Well, IACC is a really unusual community in the sense that I think it's probably still, and has been for a long time, the only association or community that represents the top 1% of meetings focused conference venues in the world, and those that sit underneath the umbrella of being specialists in putting on events of less than 250 people. So if you take that niche, they have that focus, they have that strategy, they have dedicated meeting spaces. They really take meetings and smaller conferences and training seriously. We've got this lovely collection of 400 venues now that has built over 40 years in 23 countries that come together, not necessarily to do business or to gain leads or connections, but actually, to share ideas that matter. It's one big ideas exchange. It's about very entrepreneurial operators of these venues wanting to be with like-minded people, entrepreneurs, and to learn from them, learn from different cultures, learn from different types of venue, so that they can stay in that top 1% and and stand out from the crowd. So that's what the community is. We refer to ourselves as IACC. It was formerly the International Association of Conference Centers. IACC, I think, is the only word that still rhymes with kayak. So that's how I get people to remember it. But yeah, I have the absolute honor of representing all the entrepreneurs that sit in these 400 venues, from castles to day venues throughout the world, which is a privilege.
Well, and I like the fact that you said entrepreneurs because, like Lada owns that conference center. Yes. And so it is very entrepreneurial. You'd think that, when you say conference center, it might be, and I know we're going to a Verizon conference center in next April for the conference, but right. But a majority of the membership are entrepreneurs.
They are, and I think one of the reasons why we dropped the full explanation and just work with the acronym now, which is incredibly well known, so we didn't want to drop that, is because the word conference center can conjure up positive and negative. If you have been in the industry or the meetings industry for some years, you go back, it wasn't hard. Some very poor facilities would put the name conference center after their name, and the experience was pretty dull, or pretty sort of let's just say dull, beige walls. Look, and so when you walk into a venue today, a meeting venue that really does have that focus and expertise, like Lotta's property, one of the first to do away with having a desk between your reception team and your guests, a few years ago now. But those that think differently about the experience a meeting attendee has, they're the ones that you get that warm, fuzzy feeling when you walk through and start to get involved in a meeting and think, wow, this space and this place and these people are really cool.
Right. And I agree. And all the ones that I've been to, I don't know how many now, I agree with that statement across the board. So they're really unique and different and offer a lot of different opportunities than the standard convention center or hotel. So, okay. So we wanted to talk about the report. So this meeting room of the future.
Yes.
How many years have you been doing it, and what does the future mean? Is it 3 years, 10 years, 20 years?
Yeah, of course. So, given all of that we've said, Tracy, in regards to the footprint of our membership, the one thing that was obvious was when we, for many years, was that all the research and great work that's done for our industry on, identifying trends, it was all very much focused on either very large events, they're easier to measure, or it was focused across the board, and and still you had that need to move to larger events. Nothing really said we're going to focus on research for events of less than 200 people. And that's where Meeting Room of the Future came about. And that was 7 years ago. We used to run one report a year. Last year we did 4. I don't know how we did that. We did 4 because last year our industry was changing so fast. We were like, well, this has a 12-week shelf life maximum. We've got to do it again. So we're probably on about 11, 12 now over a 7-year period. We either go out to meeting planners around the world, meeting professionals. So this year was that year, 2023, when we went out to 275 organizers of those smaller conferences, meetings and training courses globally, to ask them what they feel the future needs to look like in terms of the venues in their offer, their service, their facilities in 3 years' time. So we're very specific. We don't know, we're not necessarily saying this has got to happen today, but we're equal measure not saying, give us something that, may or may not be invented in the future. We do want to have trends. And our goal is to do one of 2 things. Of course, is to give those operators of the venues an idea of where we're heading so they invest in the right areas and create what meeting professionals want. But by equal measure, sometimes it's about giving meeting professionals something tangible. If they're tied to an organization or a boss that is unwilling to move from a venue they've always gone to for 10 years, or an association that doesn't think that the venue is of importance, it's all about the content. It gives them some material, some data to take to those that can influence, to say, this is the type of meeting facilities that the world wants. Look at our conference. We're not putting ourselves or immersing ourselves in these type of facilities or venues. Maybe we should think about it. So it's giving everybody in the industry a tool to look forward, whether they are a meeting professional or whether they're a venue operator. And that's always been the goal. And that's
awesome. And so this, and just going to recap really quickly too, is that in other reports, you go to the venues as well, and you ask them what they're seeing from their planners.
Yeah. So next year we will do exactly that. We will ask a very similar set of questions of the venue operators. And what we're trying to do here is we're trying to, as well as get their opinion, we're also, particularly when we ask the meeting venue operators, their opinion, is if we see a difference in priorities or trends, if we see gaps emerging, then they're gaps that we really should address. In some cases, a difference of opinion might mean that a venue doesn't feel something's important to invest in, whereas a meeting professional thinks, you've got to get your house in order and invest in these areas for me, because that's what my attendees demand. So we'll call out those differences, even if it means, that it's pretty uncomfortable to address it. We feel that's our role. To be the best, you've got to be willing to be, criticized, knocked down, steered, influenced by others' opinions. And that's what we hope to bring forward by bouncing each year between one group and the other.
Okay, so from this report from planners, what do you have a couple of big revelations from the report?
Well, we certainly do. And when we look at areas like our prioritization of sustainability and social responsibility, there's some key differences and areas that you feel were surprising in terms of the data. But one of the areas that I do want to address is actually not a surprise at all, but we have to remember it for what it is, and that is about this terminology of creating incredible meetings experiences. it's not new, and I've heard some in the industry say, "Oh, we need to move on from that." Yes, meeting experiences were there. It was there at MPI in 2020 or 2019 at in Las Vegas. Yes, it was, but that whole concept of creating incredible experiences, that remains very much the priority of meeting professionals. But how you do it is changed. Now, if
Okay.
you do have a hang up with using the word meetings experience, like pivoting, you dare
Right.
bring it into a sentence these days, then I encourage everyone to do what I've done, which is, just really think about using the terminology. Our role is to create memories, positive memories for attendees. Our role is to stimulate as many senses for our attendees during their journey through that event or that meeting, because the more senses that we invoke, the more chances of creating a positive memory, and and they're feeling a connection with those around them at the event. So we do have to be creative, and that includes the type of spaces that we put people in, and then of course what we do with them and how we treat them, which covers everything from facilities to food and beverage to technology to social responsibility, i.e. our communities, our people, and vitality. So that was that's one revelation. And another one, there is a general acceptance that that there's a bit more of a move away from traditional hotels. That's slowing down. From the last time we asked these questions of the meeting professionals in 2019, so some years, but
Right.
for understandable reasons, we haven't gone back and asked them until now because they were not running meetings in the
Right.
but a downward trend, and I think there's a link between creating experiences and memories, and not going to the non-inspiring big box kind of hotel with one ballroom and one boardroom. We need the venue to play more of a role in the experience or the memory creation.
Right.
So
Right.
we've seen that as well. Yes, generally there is an acceptance that venues will, accommodate dietary requirements, and if you communicate them in advance to good levels, but also meeting professionals are telling us there's a much more significant acceptance that health and well-being is got to be a part of the menu planning, the food and beverage offer, and alternatives to just post-dinner bars. We've got to be doing more with that. Interestingly, as we think about that as a concept, one of our members in Sweden, I think, was incredibly brave just earlier this year, and they actually made a decision that, as standard, all of their menus would become meat-free.
Wow.
And they made that the standard, so they flipped it. As opposed to asking, one way, the standard being the other, they went the other way, so that you needed to request the protein element. And they went through this journey. It's not that they did that for any reason that is linked to the the ownership or the organization that owns it, or any beliefs of an individual. Just really, they wanted to experiment with taking it from the exceptional request from one direction to the other. And at first they met with resistance, as you would expect. People were very cautious, but actually, since going through those months of doing that, and believe you me, they had to put a huge amount of investment in their in their meal plan, their menu planning, to make sure menus were attractive, interesting, tasty, professionally presented. But they now have seen the resistance and the requests for exceptions going down. In fact, the feedback they're getting is their attendees are loving the dining experience that they're being put in that they probably wouldn't be put in when they were at home. So good to see examples of pioneers like that member in Sweden doing that.
Okay, that's really interesting because there's a couple of different organizations are also that I've had on the show too, is like make the default veg, right? And so making it that way and making the request the other way, right? And so that it and see how it works, right? I mean, I like the fact that they did it as a experiment to see what would happen, but it's working.
Yeah,
right?
it is. I mean, it's a fantastic little venue. Anyone who's going to Sweden, it's called Fagarud, and Sebastian Tarkowski and his team there do lots of things. They've been known for being experiential and experimental for many years, even in their meeting room designs and what they've done. So this isn't new for them, but it's new starting to see us do that, and it is linked to that more inclusive menu planning. Let's get as little in that exceptional you need to tell us about it box as possible, and that way we can be more efficient, more cost effective, have less waste, and have that impact on the climate as well as our budgets that we want. One shouldn't be at the expense of the other, and that came out in the report quite a lot.
Right. Yeah. Okay, cool. Awesome. Well, and I'm going to give everybody the link to the report. Now, Inga here has commented, experiences matter. She visited a local nursery this past weekend who blew her away as they built a fantastic new cafe and outdoor dining experience within the nursery space. And she's going to go back for that reason. I think that's really, really important. Oh, Mark, okay, she's asking to type in the name of that resort.
Okay, let me do that, and let me make sure I get it right.
Okay, and if you want to, I don't know if you can comment, put it in the chat for me.
I can do even better. I can pop the link straight in there. It is F for Freddie, AGERUDD.SE, and it is in there.
Okay.
And their title is Rethinking Meetings. So there we go.
Okay. Copy link address, comments, and then I'm going to put it down here with the actual link. There we go. Awesome. And thank you for that. Why aren't you posting? Okay. I think it's there. There we go. Well, and even I talked to Simon from Why Boston, which is another one of your properties, but in the UK. Yes. And they're, in the UK, and I'm not sure if everybody's familiar with this, when you're giving food away, they actually have to put the full dietary information about not just dietary needs, but the full nutritional information about the food and beverage. And kind of like the other resort, they looked at some of their menu items, and this goes back to the healthiness aspect of it, is that they're like, holy moly, this food that we're serving, some of these items they removed from their menus because they were so caloric, high in calories, or so high in salt or whatever. They were like, I can't believe we're serving this. So they changed their menus in that respect.
Visibility of information is important, because it's not there. We're busy people, and I always say, Tracy, that actually, if we're to play a role in showing people the alternatives, I think we have much more chance of being successful if we do it through attendance at a conference and a meeting, because you don't choose like you choose on a menu when you go out for with dinner with friends. With dinner with friends, you know what you like, and unless you're of that that type of person that will go for something on a menu because you have no clue what it is. A lot of people will favor routine. But when you go to a conference, I know I eat some of the foods I eat today because of having a career in the industry, and I've been to so many gala dinners and tried and been given something on a plate and think I will hate that and I love it.
Right.
And we have a chance to immerse people for a period of time in an environment to slightly change maybe behaviors or educate themselves through their food and beverage program and other ways, recycling, sustainability. It really is an opportunity not to be missed. We could touch and educate so many people silently or non-silently that way.
Well, and I remember we're commenting to this one planner years ago, and she's like, well, all of my people are, they want this and they want this and they're overweight. And she's like, I want to feed them healthy. I'm like, well, you've got them for 3 days. It's your budget. Feed them the way that you want. If they want to go get something else, then have them do that. But you want them to come back. You want them to be sustaining and be, healthy while they're with you. Because as one administrative assistant used to call me, is like, you're everybody's mama, right? And like, so you're the mom and the dad of this, designing these meetings and help them be healthier.
When I've spoken to people about this, and they're being maybe a little bit afraid of taking steps because they think they'll displease part of, or their attendees, and this links back to the very beginning of our conversation, around where having something that gives evidence that this is the right thing to do, and the report and the statistics is that, because you could be that outlier meeting planner that is fearful that your group, your audience is like no other group and no other audience, right? Of course,
right.
We always think that our community is special. But one of the reasons I believe it falls down is when we do stuff that's for the right intention, but we don't tell people in advance. And therefore, so if you take, for example, the conference that you will be coming to next week, we are reducing the carbon footprint by X number of CO2 tons. We've done this through careful planning. And as an organization, we will be giving back that in the form of, and you will be contributing, to something as an organization. And if you package it, people, that they will go on that journey and they'll be trying things that are different, etc. I found personally through our events, you will get far less resistance. It's when you just do it and you don't explain the reasons or give people a reason to get behind your idea in advance. So the communication beforehand and the way you package it maybe could help you if you are fearful.
That's a really good example, and it's a really good model to follow, because and everybody wants transparency these days, right? And that's another form of that, and communicating how they're helping you support different things, or how they themselves are helping do things, is, I think that's huge. Right. Because everybody wants to give back these days in a variety of different aspects.
And that leads me to maybe one of the other areas of the report that was quite surprising. So we spend a lot of time educating at industry events, whether it's IMEX, IBTM, WEC, PCMA, etc. We spend a lot of time recognizing and educating around, social impact and sustainability. And the report this year, where we did look for generational or geographical differences, one of the clear differences was geographically over, the value of, certain things. And one of them was, where do you place sustainability in regards to other areas such as accessibility, etc. In Europe, sustainability was, or European meeting planners, sustainability was number one as a priority out of the four. In the US, it was the bottom of the four, and accessibility was number one. Now, before we, try to, beat ourselves up and say, if we do believe that, sustainability is still incredibly important, which I do. When you try to read between the lines, sometimes it might be a case that we actually know it's like running hot water. It's a hygiene thing. We know sustainability is important now, but some of the other elements like accessibility are even more important for us in terms of action and change. So, it might be that actually sustainability has become common practice. We're not putting it on a pedestal because we're doing it. And in
that's
some
true.
regard, maybe. But if we're not, then it does, we do need to look at how that really is taken and viewed by venue operators, because still one of our biggest challenges is encouraging the industry from a venue operator perspective to invest in sustainable solutions, because they require investment. And if not being asked for, or they're not being responded to positively by meeting professionals embracing those, then of course they won't invest. They'll invest in something else. So really the voice of your group, your community, our community in terms of meeting organizers is, if we think it's important, ask for it in the RFP. And that only too well. You've presented with me on this whole topic. The power of asking if a venue does something or can do something is really quite profound.
Well, and that reminds me of a planning meeting I was in last week for an event this Friday that I'm doing with the Raleigh, North Carolina Convention Center. And they did an event last summer, and it was about accessible events. And they got a checklist from the Kennedy Center on how to do some of these things. And they said, as soon as you step off the bus or out of your car or whatever, they can control that environment. And they realized through a checklist that they already were doing some things, but then they've decided, they're like, hey, we want to go ahead and make these other changes, however much the investment is to do these things. But they also learned that even if the meeting planner is not asking, we need to be telling them this is what we're doing, right? Because it might not matter to you for your meeting, but it's going to matter to me for my meeting. But then again, you show up for your meeting, Mark, and it does, that one aspect that they did has a huge impact on your meeting, and you didn't even think about it, right? So doing it for the right reasons in ahead of time, and then explaining it is huge.
And one of the other pieces of research, and forgive me, I can't recall where it was, but it was very, very recent. And the opinions is those incoming generations, they do want to know, why you're doing something, why they're being put through, and the value that it has. So if you explain that, they will buy into the attractiveness of the venue, or will be more attracted to, the event, than if you say, this is the content, this is what it is, this is the agenda, etc. They want to know why you're putting that event on, why you're doing what you're doing, what they will experience, what they will come away with. And that includes the social and other innovative, even if you are being tech forward or tech experimental, all of those play a role. But tell them why you're doing it in advance, and why they should get excited to be a part of it when they turn up.
Okay, I know we're running short on time because you have another call, right?
Yes. I am sorry, we keep talking. I'm good at talking.
So am I. So I want to know, it's the July is the month of independence and freedom. And that was my message a couple of weeks ago. So I want to know, looking at your study, and I didn't ask you this in advance, so I'm putting you on the spot here. Thinking about that, do those two words, freedom and independence, ring into what these planners are looking for and that venues can do to provide independence, for attendees?
So if I can flip the word independence to personalization,
okay,
and the word freedom, I would do just that. So I think personalization, having what you want, being able to make the freedom of choice, is really, really important. And again, this isn't profound and new. It kind of was there before. We were talking pre-pandemic about having different tables, different chair solutions in meeting rooms so that people can sit on bean bags or high tops, or we've had that, but still now going through, for instance, the food and beverage programs, being able to personalize those even more powerfully than we did before, I think is absolutely right. Freedom, I equate freedom to choice. So again, that's putting on an event. When you put on one event, don't think of it about one event that people should start, come in at the start and go at the end. And if they come in late and go early, or one or the other, that's a failure. The freedom to move in and out and treat it like a festival, like a drop in, like a drop out, and making them have the ability of that, and the freedom to go outdoors into spaces and choose venues with, well, not even outdoors, but with great cool spaces, in lobby areas and in sitting rooms, and yes, outdoors and whatever. Giving people the freedom to do that and them not to feel guilty. I'd say yes, exactly right. I'd be really excited about a venue that embraced that, and a meeting organizer that embraced it as well, and the program design that embraced that by equal measure.
Yeah. And I think that goes back, it's tied into that accessibility, it's tied into that sustainability, it's tied into even the technology that you're incorporating into your events, right? across?
Technology is there. We may not have gone all of the way that we thought we might do in the pandemic in terms of replacing live meetings, and we may be seeing some resistance and pushback to the hybrid and stream side of things, just because we can get back now. But what I would say to anybody is beware of drawing opinions on what the future is going to be today, but absolutely embrace the concept of, digitally live meetings will be here and strong for a long time.
Yep.
But they're all digitally charged now, so it's interwoven into the fabric of a live meeting, as opposed to being one or the other.
Right, exactly. I love that. Okay, so I just flashed up your information of how to get a hold of you personally on LinkedIn, and he's the #1 Mark Cooper. Just if you noticed that one before that name, so look him up. And then, Mark, how does everybody get in touch with you? I mean, with IACC, you've got your website there on your next to your name, and then, oops, I took it away.
That's okay.
I'll put it back up there. Here's how to get the report itself. I did a bit.ly because the link was really long. So just copy that report and I will make sure that it's in the,
sure. Yeah, just Google IACC meetings and go to research and trends. Yeah. And the report is free to read online, or there is a download if you want it as a PDF. It's 38 pages of 275 meeting planners' perspectives. So can't get much richer. And
then you have a really cool the infographic on it as well that people can look at. And I'm going to put that PDF link right there too. So, okay, Mark Cooper, thank you very much for spending time with me today.
Pleasure, Tracy. Thank you. And everybody have a great rest of the day, and get back to that cafe in the garden centre. I know that I'm coming out with cakes and plants by the bucketful.
That's awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much for being here, and I will talk to you in the next few days, I'm sure. All right.
Bye for now.
Bye. Everybody, next week, and I'm blown away by this, is my 200th episode. I cannot believe that I started this in May of 2020 as Facebook Live conversations in the Facebook group, the Eating at a Meeting Facebook group, and you can join that join the Eating at a Meeting Facebook group, answer a couple of questions and participate there. So next week is 200th episode, and I have about 12 to 15 of my previous guests lined up to come online and talk to us about the current state of food and beverage. So I hope you join me next week for that. I'm very, very excited, and I would not be here without you as listeners and my guests who have been on the show. It's probably about 190 people that I have learned so much from. So stay tuned for next week, and I look forward to seeing you. Until then, stay safe and eat well. Thanks.